Some breaking news for you today. As of this morning, Thursday the 30th of March 2023, Marshall Amplification has officially been sold to a Swedish company called Zound Industries. And what does this mean for the Marshall that we know of today? Well, we don't know yet. But realistically, there's kind of two ways this can go. The first way is nothing changes. We don't notice a difference from the Marshall that's been the same for years. The only other thing that can happen is changes. And whether those changes are good or not so good, we have no idea yet. But there might be some information that could indicate, if there are going to be changes, what they might be from looking at the company that now owns Marshall. Marshall are kind of like Gibson or Fender. They're a legacy brand and have been for quite some time. And legacy brands, just like Gibson and Fender, don't tend to push the envelope much, varying from their successful products. And it wouldn't be untrue to say Marshall haven't been innovators in the guitar scene for a while now. What's their most latest guitar-based product after years of just variations of craft beer? It was a range of pedals. Cool, but those were a reissue of a range of pedals, so they weren't really pushing anything on as far as innovation goes, at least. Now Marshall, like most legacy brands, didn't really deviate from their lineup. They remained very consistent on the amplifiers that they made for many years, which does have a bit of a backfiring situation on the second-hand market, because that does tend to fill up with a lot of product on that market, which means that it becomes cheaper. Like, I can go onto adverts right now, that's the Irish version of Craigslist. If I was looking for a Marshall 412, my budget would only have to be like €300 or so. There are a lot of Marshall cabinets in this country, and they're all for sale secondhand for significantly less than buying them new, and that's the only money that would be going into Marshall's bank account. And it's also the same situation with Marshall amps as well. They are readily available at a lower price on the second-hand market, and Marshall aren't really competing with that because they're offering the exact same products new. So what these legacy companies tend to do, and Marshall are probably the best example of it being successful, is launch into more lifestyle branding and apparel and that sort of stuff, and Marshall have done that pretty well. They've got the classic Marshall fridge, a couple of different sizes of that. They've got, of course, if you've got a fridge you need to fill it, they've got a variety of different craft beers, Marshall craft beers. They've got a range of sunglasses. I think they had a couple of different luxury camping bags or rucksacks, like hiking bags at one point. They have a collaboration with BMW for a Marshall speaker system in a motorbike. And probably the most successful out of all of this is their Bluetooth speakers and their headphones. What's interesting here is that those are both made by Zound Industries. That collaboration was started about 10 years ago.
And what's interesting is that was a long-term licensing agreement from Marshall to Zound, which obviously was a very profitable long-time licensing agreement because it allowed them to purchase Marshall outright instead of just licensing the name and likeness like they have been doing for the last 10 years. It does, though, indicate where the real money has been for Marshall for all these years.
That's all going to go under the umbrella of something called the Marshall Group. And the son and daughter of Jim Marshall, who up until this point have owned Marshall in Milton Keynes, are not going to be excluded from this. In fact, they are the biggest shareholder, which is 24% shares. So they do have a say in what goes on. The chief executive of Zound Industries, and now the Marshall Group, said, "Combining our strengths and unique positioning as the Marshall Group will fuel our ambition to create premium, innovative products and experiences for musicians and music lovers around the world." And what does that mean? We don't know yet. Are they going to do anything different? Maybe the innovation they're talking about is more in Bluetooth speakers, or maybe they'll make a guitar combo that has the ability for Bluetooth as well. But guitar players, they don't really like innovation, especially with valve amps. Take a look at, well, we're using valve amps. This is an ancient, obsolete technology, really, in most cases, except in hi-fi and guitar amps. So innovation isn't really a thing that goes well unless it's done right, and it's hard to do right. Maybe do something like Rev did with their lunchbox amps. Those were widely accepted, and those are really cool, and they use a technology that isn't found in the vast majority of valve amps. You've got the two-note stuff in there. And they also mentioned experiences? Like, is it going to go the Gibson route of kind of making it much more of a lifestyle brand? I mean, Marshall are already going for the lifestyle brand thing. Are they going to push that more? Are they going to maybe slim down on the valve amp side? Because, as I said previously, there's a lot of competition on the second-hand market. Are they going to leave that for a bit? Maybe come back to it later? Marshall aren't at NAMM this year, but I suppose that makes sense considering they just sold the company. But then again, neither are Gibson, Fender or PRS. I would hope that the changes that are to come are for the better, and it doesn't affect the current employees that are in Milton Keynes working for Marshall. But I'll close on this. It's kind of interesting to think that, well, a few months ago, maybe a year, relatively recently enough, Mesa Boogie were just bought out by Gibson. And now Marshall have just been bought out by Zound Industries. The biggest amp companies in the world are selling up. And Zound had the capital to buy Marshall. They were probably doing incredibly well with the Marshall Bluetooth and headphone speakers. Now, whether they're buying it because the name and the likeness of the products is what helped sell all these Bluetooth speakers and headphones, and that's where clearly the money is, we don't know yet. And if there is going to be change for Marshall, I would hope that it would be change for the better. At least for the guitar section of it. Because, well, you wouldn't be wrong in saying that for the last few years at least, Marshall have kind of been coasting on the reputation and not the new products that they're putting out. Like, if I said in the last 10 years, point the definitive Marshall product that's really set them apart, you'd have to say the Bluetooth speaker. It's not a guitar amp. And that's kind of a shame when Marshall are a guitar amp company at heart, at least. Anyway, that's the news. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.